Hello, welcome back to my fave fanfics. Here, I post, well, my favorite fanfictions, if that wasn't obvious. I do hope you'll enjoy them as much as I do. Please like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome, my dear faves, to the sixth part of What If Wanderer Ended Up in the World of My Hero Academia. Credit goes to Phantom Fox 19 for this fantastic fanfic. Link is in the description for those who prefer to read, or want to contact the author. Chapter 23. You want me to take an academia student? Fujin asked Nahida, who nodded. Her name is Layla, she's a part of the Ardawahist Darshan, she studies in astrology, she's very curious about this world and its stars. Nahida nodded. What happened to keeping this a secret? Fujin asked. She was part of the team that helped figure out how the ley line worked, she's already in the know. Nahida assured him. I've also taught her about this world's culture so she'll be able to fit right in. And what can she do for me? Fujin asked, knowing she'll be placed in his agency. She's a very good researcher, but she has a sleeping problem. Nahida told him. And how long have you been waiting to spring this on me? Quote. A month, was Nahida's response. Fujin sighed. Fine, when will she be arriving? Tomorrow. Nahida smiled. Fujin groaned. Thank you for taking me in, sir. Layla said sleepily as she bowed. She was wearing her normal blue hood, but her attire was that of a white blouse, blue jacket and a skirt with stockings and heels. Fujin realized what Nahida meant, this girl looked ready to pass out. I'm sure you know what to do and not to do, correct? Fujin asked Layla. Yes, Lord Kusanali told me that I needed to keep things quiet. I can do that, I'm very excited to work and do research here. Layla gave a sleepy smile. Fujin narrowed his eyes. Quote. Get 8 hours of sleep, when you wake up it'll be night, we can start your research on astrology by then. But sir, I wanted to do some research on this world. Layla protested. You can do that when you were rested. When was the last time you got 8 hours? Come on. Fujin guided Layla to the dormitories. As soon as Layla hit the bed, she was out like a light. Faruzan came by and noticed Layla. Oh, this is the one from the academia. Yes, Fujin sighed. Faruzan nodded. I'll watch over her, you do what you need to do. Sometimes, Fujin was thankful for Faruzan, even if she was a pain. Later that night, Fujin was reviewing the evidence he had on the Meta Liberation Army. Thanks to Minami when using her code name, Oracle. Fujin found the army and it was deeper than he thought. Detranet was a front for the army, the CEO, Rikia Yatsubashi, was the leader, it made sense, there were so many. Oracle was able to find out because she hacked into the company before and they haven't changed their software, morons. There were thousands of agents all over Japan. It would take a long time to gather the information, but thanks to Oracle and the incompetence of the army, they're gathering the information needed. How long until we get the information on all agents of the MLA? Fujin asked Minami from the secure laptop. Add in the fact that I need to be as quiet as a mouse, leave no footprints and it's only me doing the work, I think I can get it all in December. Minami responded. That will give us enough time to mobilize and come up with a foolproof strategy. Nezu spoke up from his side of the call. We need more hands. Fujin scowled. Nezu, do you have anyone with hacking capabilities? He asked. Sadly no, none that are close to Oracle's skill level. Nezu answered. Quote. I'll reach out to my contacts in the Hero Network and underground. Fujin crossed his arms. Perhaps I can find someone to help Oracle, and what of the investigation into the HPSC? That's going slower, boss, Minami answered. They're very good at hiding things, maybe if we have someone on the inside, but I doubt that it would be that simple. The commission is too experienced in covering their tracks. Nezu added. We need to find indisputable proof, but that can wait until the MLA is taken care of. Agreed, Fujin sighed. Oracle, focus on the MLA for now, any other projects are secondary, I'll be sure to give you a raise for your good work. I expect a vacation afterwards. Minami demanded. We'll talk about it. Fujin ended the call with Minami. How is Ms. Layla faring? Nezu asked as he was still on the call. Stargazing, Fujin answered plainly. You do realize that you cleared almost every cloud in 50 miles. Nezu said dryly. When Layla went to the roof of the agency, she was sad to see so many clouds in the sky due to pollution, so Fujin flew into the sky and blew away all the clouds so she could see the stars. She needed to do her research, and I hear that people are out and about looking at the stars. Fujin responded. Layla was really happy and excited to start her research. Is the cover story ready? Fujin asked. Quite. Nezu responded in a chipper tone. Your mother is the resident of a small island a great distance from Japan which is currently uninhabited, but thankfully, there are ruins there that suggest that there was a community before. Fujin hummed and cupped his chin. So, we could spin the tale that our community was wiped out. That would be an ideal solution, people won't ask too many questions. Nezu added. Did the small community have a name? Fujin asked, sipping his tea. Yes, Inazuma. Quote. Fujin didn't do a spit take, he refused to acknowledge that. Are you joking? Fujin demanded. No, I am not, Nezu responded. I am sending you pictures of the map now. Fujin checked the pictures and to his surprise, the island looked like the main island of Inazuma. How? This, I'll investigate once I have time. Fujin saved the location for later. He always wondered how there were cultural similarities to Inazuma in Japan, or the other way around. I suggest that you do it at a later time. Nezu advised. Japan needs to see its number one hero. They need to look at other heroes. Fujin frowned. And who will the heroes look up to? Nezu asked him. The puppet didn't answer. Goodbye. With that Fujin hung up. Mina Ishido hummed as she walked through the common room of the dorms with a plastic bag in hand. With all the training for the provisional license exam, Mina went out. She had just come back from some shopping and she found a Wanderer figurine while she was out, the most recent one where it looks like he's coated in lightning. She just had to have it. Getting in the elevator, Mina wondered if she should have NATO to treat herself. When she got out of the elevator and walked to her room, she saw her door slightly ajar. Weird, she didn't leave it open. Mina pushed the door open and she froze at the sight. Himiko was in her room, which in itself wasn't bad, but she was taking pictures of the custom-made Wanderer body pillow on her bed. Oh, hi Mina. Himiko gave a Cheshire grin. I'm just gonna take these, don't mind me. Give me the phone. Mina dropped the plastic bag and lunged at Himiko, who dodged and ran out of the room laughing. Mina gave chase. Himiko. Give me the phone now please. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Mina begged, her cheeks dark purple with embarrassment. She specifically hid that pillow when they were doing the room contest, but it looks like Himiko found out about it. No. I'm gonna keep these. My uncle will definitely flip when he sees this. Himiko cackled as she could imagine the look on her uncle's face when she shows him this. Himiko jumped out the window and landed on a tree branch with cat-like grace. Mina wasn't as lucky. She yelped as she tried to jump after Himiko, but the branch she tried to catch broke and she fell into the bushes below. Himiko giggled and climbed down quickly. Just another day at UA. The strawberry is very sweet, but so is mango, A muttered as she and Fujin walked down the street. A had just ordered a strawberry smoothie. An hour before that, she had a mango smoothie. Fujin was taking A around sightseeing. Normally he was worried about the public seeing A, but that was in vain as clips of their spar was leaked and people started making theories. So sneaking around was useless. There are so many flavors, I do hope to try them all. A told Fujin as she sipped her drink. You can over time, Fujin rolled his eyes. Very well, we will also be going to this exam. A questioned. Fujin sighed. Indeed, he was taking A to see the stadium where UA Class 1A would be taking their provisional licensing exam. He was also curious to see the other schools participate. Fujin planned to go alone, but A visited suddenly and he couldn't leave her alone. Yes, my student and Himiko along with their class will be taking the exam. Fujin responded. Ah yes, the blonde girl. A nodded as she remembered the blonde girl. She calls you uncle, she noted. She sees me as family. Fujin shrugged as they continued walking, ignoring the whispers and people taking pictures. But the people knew better than to bother Wanderer when he's out and about. A stopped and saw a store selling Wanderer merch. She got closer, seeing a replica of his hat, took one, tried it on. Must you do this? Fujin scowled as A turned to look at him. I'm simply trying it. A commented as she put the hat back and saw a figure of him. She took it. How much? She asked the vendor. The seller, a large man reading the paper, looked over to them and he froze as he saw the duo. It's free. He shouted as he got up. A blinked and smiled. Thank you. She thanked the man as he put the figure in a plastic bag and handed it to A. Fujin sighed as the two continued to walk. They finally made it to Dagoba Stadium. Fujin guided A to the side entrance. Wanderer and guest. Fujin told the guards who nodded and opened the door, letting the duo inside. As they walked up the steps to the stands, A noticed that it was mostly empty, except for a few people in suits scattered around. Wanderer. A turned to see a man dressed in a black jumpsuit with a scarf and a lady in green and blue. Wanderer. Hey. The woman ran over and grinned at her son. Still grouch like ol' Shota over there. She pointed at the man named Shota. Fujin gave the woman a dull stare and turned to the man. Is she still insufferable, Aizawa? Aizawa sighed. Yes. Ah, come on. The woman laughed. Was she always like this? The woman turned to A and she gasped. Wanderer. Is this really your mom? A blinked. I am his mother. A confirmed. You must have baby pictures. The woman was in front of A with a big grin and then Aizawa used his scarf to restrain the woman. Not the time, joke, Aizawa growled and the man turned to the puppet. What are you doing here? He asked Fujin. I'm here to observe. I want to see if the future generation is good enough. The puppet responded. Aizawa slowly nodded. Got it, also thanks for the tips, they really helped. With that, he dragged the woman away. Fujin sighed. That was Ms. Joke, she's a hero who has the ability to make people laugh uncontrollably and uses that to take down criminals. A blinked, That sounded rather useful if utilized properly. They found some seats and sat down, sipping on her smoothie. The arena below had multiple sections and in the center was a large box. He already had an idea that the students were inside. How did they make all this? Asked Fujin. Their funding is larger than most people realize. Fujin responded as the HPSC representative explained the objective, which was basically tagging 3 of a person's targets to advance. Soon, the large box opened up, showing the large number of students. A studied the crowd, looking for the blonde girl she met at the hospital. I don't see her. Fujin found class 1A and found her. She's over there. Fujin pointed at the class. A looked at where he was pointing and blinked. Quite the costume. Does she have a code name? Fujin nodded. From what she told me, she picked the vampiric heroine. Carmen. He watched as Himiko broke away from the class and weaved through the crowd of enemy schools. Himiko's costume consisted of a black bodysuit with red lining, a red and white jacket that had many pockets, on her thighs were pouches that contained throwing knives, on her back was a small pack that had 2 tubes connecting to syringes, and lastly, she had a mask to cover her lower face as well as a hood. She took inspiration from your costume. A noted. Fujin couldn't help but smirk. A student from another school used his quirk, an earthquake quirk, to separate class 1A. Fujin watched as Himiko used her skills to weave through other students and instantly advance as she got her 3 targets. She's quite skilled. A complimented and nodded. If she were to have a vision, she would be very powerful. What's her quirk? A asked him. If she drinks the blood of a certain person, she can transform into that person for a certain amount of time, depending on the amount of blood she drinks. Fujin answers. She has the ability to mimic their personality as well. A's eyes widened. She was a perfect infiltrator. Fujin watched as Momo and some of her other classmates rushed to the city section of the arena. He noticed a group of women entering a building that Momo and her group entered as well. Fujin then spots a Shiketsu student with a wind quirk. His control is good, Fujin commented as the wind user took out a large group of students. I agree, but his wind power is inferior to yours. A huffs. Fujin blinks and looks at A. It was weird to hear her compliment him like this. He spotted Bakugo, the redhead he encountered in Kamino, and a blonde teen going up against a Shiketsu student. The blonde's electric power is inferior to any electro-vision user. A commented. Fujin snorted as he turned his attention to the city. He saw Momo and her classmates leaving the building, having passed the test. He nodded in approval. Is that the girl you took as an intern for a week? A asked. Yes, she has the ability to create any inorganic object as long as she knows the material it's made of and has enough lipids to create it. Fujin explained. She's also a genius which helps in creating complex items. A's eyes went wide. There was such an ability. That is invaluable. She has potential to be an amazing hero if she can utilize her quirk correctly. Fujin waved his hand. The mother and son watched as the other students passed their exams. Himiko took off her mask with a sigh as she stretched. The first exam was easy. All her training with Aizawa, Vernon and Uncle Fujin was paying off. She sat down and relaxed as other students came in. She snickered when she waved at glaring students. They were jealous of her. But Himiko didn't care. Yo. Himiko blinked and looked up to see a fawn-haired girl in a cat bodysuit and had a Shiketsu hat. Your performance in the first test was totes amazing. The girl smiled. Himiko blinked again. Oh thanks, you're from Shiketsu. She pointed out. And you're from UA. The girl smiled. I'm Kami Yutsushimi, nice to meet you fam. Quote. Himiko, just Himiko. Himiko nodded to Kami. So, how can I help you? Quote. Kami pouted. Just wanted to see the girl who finished the test first. Kami crossed her arms. I'm curious about the competition. Himiko asked bluntly. Ah, can't I just say hi? Kami smiles. You can, but this isn't really the time to socialize. Himiko smirked. Hey, you're on your guard. A Shiketsu student with lots of hair, and she means lots of hair, walked up to them. But still, I hope that our classes become friends. Himiko got up from her seat. That would be nice, better to be allies than bitter enemies. Himiko smirked. Even if we're the better hero school. Oh, fighting words. Kami smirked. Himiko was about to speak when Mara, the representative, called for everyone's attention. Fujin narrowed his eyes as the city started exploding. So this is the next test, as expected. A cupped her chin. Rescue, the most important part of hero work is it. Quote. Yes. Fujin nods. But rescuing isn't as simple as it seems. Every situation is unique, so you must think of a way to comfort the civilians and save them from the disaster. A hummed as she turned to watch as the students rushed to the burning city. Quote. Those people are actors? A asked. Yes, I worked with them before. Fujin responded. Himiko and Momo were doing well. Fujin noted, Midoriya as well. His use of his strength to save people is smart, using wind pressure from his kicks to push away some debris. He saw Bakugo shouting at the actors. Fujin facepalmed. A few minutes later, he notices men in dark outfits coming out, and with them, he sees Gang Orca. Oh, a whale. A muttered as she noticed the man as well. Gang Orca, a great hero. We worked together before when I had to deal with a villain who could manipulate salt. Fujin's face morphed into a scowl. The villain was annoying. A made a note to ask about that incident. Fujin noticed the Shiketsu student flying to fight Gang Orca, but Shoto was also making his way over. Good, if they work together, things will be over quickly. Fujin crossed his arms. But to his disappointment, the two started arguing. Quote. Morons. Fujin sighed. Leave personal issues at the door, it could get people killed. Fujin watched as the two kids were brought down by the concrete guns. This was seriously gonna affect their scores. If this was real, the two would have killed many civilians because they couldn't work together. The buzzer went off, signaling the end of the exam. Outside the stadium, Himiko was sending her mom a picture of her new license. She was so happy. Man, who's that babe? Kaminari whistled. Himiko looked up and turned to where Kaminari was looking, and her eyes went wide as she saw A walking over to them. I don't know, but she looks amazing in that suit. Shiro whispered to Kaminari with a big grin. She looks familiar. Momo furrowed her brows. Himiko. A greeted as she stopped in front of her. Congratulations on your exam. A nodded at her. Himiko raised an eyebrow. Thanks. Himiko still wasn't happy about A abandoning her uncle, but it looked like she was trying to make amends. Excuse me, but who are you? Iida asked as he stepped forward. Are you a representative for the HPSC? He asked. Himiko rolled her eyes. No, Iida, this is Raiden A, she's the mother of Uncle Juan. Class 1A stopped dead in their tracks as they all turned to Himiko. Kaminari's jaw dropped. She's Wanderer's mother? Question mark. He asked, she looked so young. Yes, A nodded. He's currently speaking to your teacher. The students look at their teacher, who was in fact talking to Wanderer. Quote dot dot dot. Has he been watching this whole time? Toru asked nervously. We have. A confirmed. He deems most of you passable in his eyes, except for you two. She turned to Bakugo and Shoto, the only ones in Class 1A to fail. What did he say? Shoto asked her as Bakugo looked at her with his angry glare. He said that you put personal feelings before the objective and that if it was a real setting, people would have died. A's face darkened. I agree with his assessment. Shoto looked away. I know my faults, I will work on them. A turned to Bakugo. And as for you, he told me that you're a rabid animal whose only goal is to fight. Bakugo growled. What the hell does that mean? Question mark. He demanded. What it means is that you think of one aspect of hero work only. Wanderer said as he came over, joining the conversation. You think that fighting the villain is all you're gonna do. Then get out of this profession, we're protectors, not aggressors. Wanderer glared at Bakugo who flinched and looked away with a scowl. Wanderer turned to the rest of the class. You all did well, I expect great things from you all when you get on the field. He praised with a nod. Thanks Uncle Wan. Himiko grinned. Thank you sir. Ochako smiled at the praise. Wanderer. A loud voice called out. Wanderer turned and saw the Shiketsu student who uses wind. It's such an honor to meet you. The student said loudly. Quote dot dot dot. And you are. Wanderer crossed his arms. Inasa Yoarishi. Inasa bowed low enough to crack the pavement. I was inspired by you to use my wind the way I do now. Quote. Wanderer raised an eyebrow. Quote dot dot dot. You're one of the students who failed, why is that? He asked. Inasa's smile stayed, but the boy stiffened. Quote dot dot dot. I saw the whole thing, you were arguing with Todoroki Shoto. Wanderer looked at Shoto. I was disappointed, if that was a real-life event, people would have died. Wanderer looked at Inasa. And you were the one who started it, care to explain? Quote. Inasa's smile dropped. I was a fan of Endeavor. I tried to ask for an autograph when I was able to meet him once but he dismissed me and gave me a cold look. I was comparing Shoto with him, Inasa admitted. Wanderer raised an eyebrow. So if you met Shoto on the field, you would have acted the same way. Quote. Inasa flinched. Quote dot dot dot. Thought so, my advice, leave personal matters at the door. On the field, people's lives matter more than your ego or personal differences. Wanderer scowled. Make sure you remember that. The atmosphere was tense until a squeal cut through it. Kami came running over with something in her hand. Wanderer. I'm a huge fan of yours. Please sign this. Kami offered Wanderer a pen and notebook. Wanderer signed and gave Kami the notebook, who hugged it with the biggest smile. I'll be taking my leave, come on. He told his mother, who nodded and they left. Bakugo watched and clenched his fists before looking at Izuku. I shall return to Inazuma, I have a meeting with someone. Ace said as the mother and son walked down the streets. I'll be on patrol, farewell mother. Wanderer then shot into the sky as A vanished from sight. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me Barbados. A said as a bard that was wearing green appeared on her balcony. Hey. I was surprised by your request. From your letter, you said it was important. Venti smiled as he plucked some strings on his lyre. In a sense, do you still have the power to bestow anemo energy into objects? A asked, considering he was no longer in possession of his gnosis. I have enough power to do so. Venti smiled. Why? Do you wish for me to bless something? Quote. A nodded. I do. A pulled out a sword and showed it to Venti. Oh ho. What a fine blade, who is it for? Venti asked as he examined the blade. For my son, he's an anemo wielder but also an electro wielder. A started to explain Fujin's element alignment. After A finished, Venti cupped his chin. Morax would be better suited for this, Blockhead knows more than me, but it's impossible for a person to wield two elements, their bodies can't handle it. Venti explained, his expression unusually serious. He's not human, he's a mechanical being made to hold a gnosis. A informed him. Venti blinked and then smiled. Oh. Now it makes sense, you do know that people with visions can attain godhood, do you not? He asked A. I do, wait, you don't mean. A looked at Barbados in shock. Hey. He's close. Very, very close. Venti took a swig of his alcohol. But he's missing a few things, our power comes from our followers as you know. A nodded before her eyes went wide once more. Fujin was a hero. A famous one. People practically worshipped him already. I take it he has a following? Venti asked. Yes. A nodded, a large following. Well, let's be glad that Celestia does not have its eyes on him. Venti looked at the sword. As for this, Venti smiled and gently blew on the sword. A watched as the sword began to glow, light green elemental energy started to flow from the blade. Will you place some of your own energy onto the blade? Venti asked her with a smile. Perhaps I should. A put a hand to her chest and then placed it on the hilt, it sparked and the electricity went from purple to light green. So it does work. Venti grinned. This is truly interesting, all I ask is the finest drink that world has to offer. Venti laughed. I'll be sure to ask my son. A nodded in acceptance as she covered the blade once more. Oh sorry, I didn't see her there. Mirio Tagata smiled as a little girl with white hair bumped into his leg. It's all right, it's my daughter's fault. Come along Eri. Kai Chisaki told Eri who clung to Mirio's leg. Mirio noticed this and was about to speak up but the hand of Sir Night-Eye was placed on his shoulder. Come along Lemillion, we still have patrol. Night-Eye told his student. Eri. Kai said in a stern tone, the little girl let go and followed after the man as they went back into the alley. Sir. We cannot tip him off Mirio, we need to be cautious about this. Night-Eye told Mirio as the tall man walked away. Once we have more information we'll make our move. Mirio frowned, a sick feeling forming in his heart. Chapter 24. Layla, when I asked you to do these reports, I expected them in a few days, not in a few hours. Fujin sighed as Layla was in front of his desk with paper in her hands. But I was told to get them done as soon as I was able to. Layla stammered out looking embarrassed. Get some rest, you may continue your work later, perhaps I can get Faruzan to take you out to sightsee. Fujin leaned back. Oh, that would be nice, thank you sir. Layla bowed and walked out. Fujin looked at his computer and opened the security footage of Layla falling asleep and then walking around as if she was completely awake. Another personality when she's asleep, that can't be healthy, Fujin rubbed his forehead. What Nahida told him about Layla was that, after Nahida's second visit, Layla had started asking questions and so Nahida told her about Japan and Earth. Layla was excited to study the stars, but the issue was the difference in culture and language barrier. For Fujin, Inazuman and Japanese were so similar that he picked up Japanese without issue. Faruzan was able to learn Japanese in 2 months when she first arrived. And Nahida was about to learn Japanese after reading his mind and learning about it. But Layla spent months learning Japanese and Japan's culture in order to fit in. All in all, Layla was a hard worker who worked too hard. The puppet rubbed his forehead. Maybe Nahida sent her here to help her relax more. Faruzan came walking in. Fujin, Nezu called. He said that work studies are gonna start soon. I was thinking of inviting Momo and Himiko to the agency. Faruzan smiled. Why Himiko? Fujin asked with a frown. Well, you have your little underground network, maybe you can teach her a thing or two. Faruzan put her hands on her hips. Fujin paused. Maybe he should, it would definitely teach Himiko something. There was one more he considered teaching. Izuku frowned as he hung up the phone, sitting on the couch and looking at the black screen. Gran Torino was unable to take him in and he didn't know anyone else to go to for the work study. Uraraka and Tsuyu went to talk to Najire Hado about having her mentor take them in, same with Kirishima going to Tamaki Amajiki. Perhaps he should talk to Mirio about the work study. Midoriya. Izuku looked up to see Momo standing before him. Did you find a hero to do your work study with? She asked him. Oh no. Izuku answered with a frown. Momo smiled. Well, as it so happens, I have received a message from Madame Faruzan that Wanderer is offering to take me in for my work study. He's also offering you an invitation. Momo informed him. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief. Wanderer wanted him. So I take it you would like to accept the invitation. Momo giggled at his expression. Why, yes. Of course. Izuku stammered. Being able to work under the top hero is an honor. Momo nodded and took her phone out. I shall contact Madame Faruzan and inform her of your decision. We do need to go to his agency to have him sign our work-study forms. Right. Just tell me when we'll be going. Izuku grinned. Tomorrow morning, Madame Faruzan always says to do your tasks at the latest. Momo smiled wider. Momo really enjoyed Madame Faruzan's company, and her tea. She could never find the brand Madame Faruzan uses, and it's even better than Gold Tips Imperial. Right. Tomorrow morning, I'll set my alarm. Izuku took his phone out and started to set the alarm. So we're going together. Himiko popped out of nowhere with the biggest grin on her face. I always begged Uncle Wan to let me work with him. Now I can. Himiko cheered. You watched him work before? Izuku asked her. Sometimes, I see him doing cases and solving them in record speed. Himiko recalled. I remember that one case that took him 2 hours to solve when he got his hands on it. Izuku's eyes widened. Which one? Himiko tapped her chin. Oh. It was the Gunma killer case. Himiko snapped her fingers. Momo's eyes widened. The case where the police found 8 women dead and the suspect was a woman named Suki Yamada. Quote. Yeah, that one. Wanderer was able to deduce that it was Suki who didn't want her father cheating on her mom and killed the women her father slept with, thinking that her father will stop cheating. Izuku recalled the case. How was he able to solve that in 2 hours? Himiko smirked. According to Vernon, when he arrived at the 8th victim's crime scene, he smelled perfume. The police couldn't smell it, but he could. He found evidence of the Suki being there. After reviewing the evidence from the previous crime scenes, he was able to compile enough to prove that she was the one who did it, and he got a warrant to search her apartment where they found the murder weapon. Quote. Wow, Momo muttered, they never said that it was solved so quickly. Izuku was writing it down in his notebook. He never knew this and made sure to ask Himiko about more cases she might know about. Tomorrow came and the 3 students took the train to Wanderer's agency. Once they arrived, Izuku noticed that the doors had a symbol painted on it. Himiko recognized it as the Anemo symbol. What's this supposed to be? Momo asked. Uncle Juan approved of this logo for the agency, kinda like how All Might has his face as his logo. Himiko explained. They went inside and Himiko waved at Chi-Chi. Hey Kai. Himiko grinned and the woman looked up. Ah, business I see. Chi-Chi noted the three as they were wearing their school uniform. Yup. Can we head up? Himiko asked with a smile. Go ahead. Chi-Chi smiled and Himiko skipped to the elevator with Momo and Izuku following. They got into the elevator and Izuku shifted nervously. Don't worry, Uncle Juan won't bite ya. Himiko grinned at Izuku. Izuku gave her a flat look as the elevator doors opened and the boy gasped as he saw the multiple clones around the office. Hey Jin! Himiko shouted. The clones stopped and looked at them, Momo blinked and Izuku squeaked. Himiko. Get her a smoothie. Blood pack. Tea for guests. The clones started to scramble as Himiko cackled. He never reacted like this before. Momo muttered. Jin's a big softie. He's also my best male friend. Himiko smiled as they walked through the large office space. Izuku was muttering and writing in his notebooks about Jin's quirk and wanted to ask him about it, but Himiko dragged him away before he could ask. Himi. The three teens turned to see Faruzan walking up to them in her regular light blue suit with a skirt. Here to talk to Wanderer. She smiled and hugged Himiko, who hugged back extra hard. Yeah. Is he in? Himiko asked. He is and he's not busy, so you came at a good time. Faruzan responded as they walked to Wanderer's office. Izuku and Momo noticed a gem encased in a gold case hanging from Faruzan's hip. It had the logo in the gem. Suddenly, Izuku was pushed to the floor and paper was flying everywhere. Oh no, I'm so sorry. A feminine voice cried out. Momo, Himiko and Faruzan turned to see Layla was helping Izuku get up and then started to gather her papers. Here. Let me help you. Izuku kneeled and helped in gathering. Thank you. I'm so sorry, I just needed to get these copied and filed right away. Layla explained. Izuku noticed that she looked very tired. Layla. Faruzan spoke in a stern tone, making the woman freeze. Did you sleep last night? Why yes. Layla responded. The boss made me go to sleep after I finished my work. Faruzan nodded. Very well, just making sure. Layla bowed to the students and ran off. Is she alright? Izuku asked with a small frown. Faruzan sighs. She's just suffering from a sleeping disorder, we're trying to help her but it gets difficult at times. She replies and knocks on the door to Wanderer's office before entering. Wanderer sat behind his desk, looking at the group with a raised eyebrow. Momo Yaoyorozu, Himiko and Izuku Midoriya, 2 out of 3 I'm familiar with and I know exactly what to expect and how to train. But one stands out, Yaoyorozu, Himiko, your forums. Wanderer wasted no time and got straight to the point. The 2 girls walked up and handed in their papers without question. Wanderer took a stamp and stamped the papers with his seal, before handing it to the girls. Faruzan, take the 2 out and get them some refreshments, I need to speak with Midoriya. Faruzan bowed and took the 2 girls out of the room. Izuku shuffled nervously as Wanderer stared at him. How much of one for all can you use now? Wanderer asked. 8%. Izuku answered immediately. That's it. Wanderer raised an eyebrow. You should be able to use more. Wanderer got up. I scouted for you because I see your potential, you're growing, but slowly. Wanderer crossed his arms. I know sir, I'm trying my best to get a better grasp of my quirk. Izuku responded. Yes, I can see that, but not fast enough, so I'm gonna be straight with you. Anyone else you train with won't be able to train you properly. Wanderer narrowed his eyes. For the sole reason that they don't know the full explanation of your quirk, you'll be walking on eggshells with information, that's why I'm taking responsibility. Izuku looked at the puppet. Sir. I'm going to push you to your limits, you'll use one for all whenever you're in the office and on the field at the highest percentage you can manage. If it feels easy to use, then increase that percentage. Wanderer rushed him. Izuku's eyes went wide and he called upon full cowling and dodged the fast attack. I expect you to excel, to run and explore all the possibilities with your quirk. Wanderer said as he turned to look at Izuku. But are you determined enough to see this through? Quote. Izuku's eyes were wide, he nodded. Yes sir. I'll take anything you throw at me. Izuku bowed. Good, you're for him. Wanderer walked to the desk and took the seal. Izuku gave Wanderer the paper and Wanderer stamped his seal onto the paper. Get your classmates and go back to UA. Hand in these papers and come back tomorrow, we will start the earliest. Wanderer ordered and handed Izuku the paper back. Izuku nodded. Thank you sir. Izuku rushed out to find his friends. Wanderer sighed softly and sat on his desk, things were gonna be busy. So you're going with Wanderer? All Might looked at Izuku as they were in one of the lounge rooms in UA. Yeah, he offered to train me saying that anyone else wouldn't be able to help me because of the secrecy of One for All. Izuku explained. All Might nodded in understanding. He's right, honestly, Wanderer is an amazing pro and a very trustworthy friend. All Might smiled. So this is a blessing, you can train One for All and talk freely when you're training with him. All Might, what do you know about him? Izuku asked. He's even more secretive than you are. The skinny man laughed. Well, I found out some stuff about him after Kamino and I have to say, now I understand him and respect him even more. I think he'll make a great number one for the years to come. Izuku stared at All Might, his mentor trusted Wanderer that much. Can you tell me? Izuku asked nervously. I think you'll have to ask him, he's very privy about his life and for good reason. All Might scratched his cheek. But you should focus on yourself and getting better with One for All. This experience will help you in the long run. Izuku nodded. I understand, he smiled. I'll do my best. The next day, Deku, Kriti and Carmilla were standing in front of Wanderer, Faruzan and Burnin in the gym of the Wanderer Agency. Listen up you imbeciles. Wanderer spoke sternly and the three stiffened at his tone. This is how things will work. You will listen to your superiors, me, Faruzan and Burnin, without question. If you have an argument, it better be a good one, otherwise, don't speak at all, am I clear? Sir. The three students shouted in confirmation. Carmilla, you will be working with Burnin to refine your combat and stealth skills when not out on patrol or doing paperwork. Huh? Question mark. Himiko's eyes widened as she looked at Burnin who was grinning. Quote. You're not mad about that video, are you? Quote. What do you think? Burnin punched her palm. Keep it professional, if I see any slacking, you're on toilet duty for 3 days. Wanderer glared and then turned to Momo. Kriti, you'll be working on archery with Faruzan when not on patrol or doing paperwork. Momo blinked in confusion. Quote. Do you have any other ways of attacking from a distance? Wanderer asked her. Momo shook her head. No sir, she muttered. That's why I'm having Faruzan teach you archery. With your quirk, you can create arrows for the bow and depending on the arrowhead, it won't be lethal. Wanderer explained. Momo nodded. I have had archery practice before sir. Have you had lessons on using a bow while being attacked? Quote. That question made Momo shut up. Don't worry. Faruzan smirked. I know my way around a bow, we can have tea during breaks. Now for you. Wanderer turned to Izuku. Deku, you will be with me, I will be training you to use your quirk more effectively and to help you gain better control. With your enhanced strength and speed, you should be able to keep up with me. Wanderer narrowed his eyes. Izuku gulped and nodded. Yes sir. Burnin dragged Himiko away with her as Himiko reached out to her friends. Save me my heroes. She cried. They ignored her. Traitors. Come along Kriti, we have targets set up. Faruzan pulled Momo to the other side of the gym. Izuku saw Wanderer giving him an expectant look before Izuku realized what he was waiting for. He called upon full cowling at 9%. Good, you're not slow, come on, I'll fly low and slow so you can keep up. Wanderer walked away and Izuku followed. The tone Wanderer used to say that was harsh and insulting, but Izuku knew that it was to motivate him. He had to do his absolute best to keep up and not slow Wanderer down. An arrow dug itself into the target as Momo lowered her bow. Good, but not good in a fight. Faruzan analyzed. As Wanderer told you, you need to move while fighting. Villains will take the opportunity to strike you down when you're standing still. I understand, may I ask, what experience do you have in fighting? Momo asked Faruzan. Quite a lot actually, I'm a bit rusty but I practice while I'm here. Faruzan grins. Momo noted the lack of arrows on Faruzan's person. Madam Faruzan, would you like me to create arrows for you? Momo asked as she got ready to make some. But Faruzan grinned and pulled the string of her bow back and Momo's eyes widened as the air seemed to form into an arrow that fit perfectly. Faruzan let the wind arrow fly and it hit the target dead center. Momo's jaw was on the floor as she stared at the target. I'm more resourceful than you realize. Faruzan twirled her bow in her hand with a smug grin. Now, prepare yourself. Faruzan aimed at Momo and pulled the string back. Another arrow formed quickly. Momo snapped out of it and dodged the arrow and made an arrow of her own. Momo never realized that the Wanderer's assistant was a fighter as well, but honestly, it wasn't surprising. Getting better kid. Burnin complimented as she dodged a slash from Himiko's knife. I've been practicing. Himiko slashed again and Burnin grabbed her wrist, disarming her. Himiko kicked high but Burnin moved her head and judo flipped Himiko. Ack! Himiko groaned. Man, Uncle Wan is giving Izu special treatment while I'm here with you. Burnin raised an eyebrow. Jealous. Yeah. I mean, I'm closer to him. Sure, Izu has his quirk, but all Uncle Wan taught me were some fighting styles he knew and nothing else. Himiko sat up and crossed her arms. The woman sighed. Kid, boss cares about you, even if he doesn't say it, he has plans for you, just be patient. Himiko looked at Burnin and then got up. Fine, thanks Aunt Mo. Don't think calling me that will lessen the ass kicking. Burnin smirked and the two started sparring once more. Izuku was breathing heavily as he followed Wanderer, jumping from building to building, using what knowledge of parkour he had to keep up. Wanderer flew rather slow, but when a crime happened, he rushed off in a flash and ended it in seconds. Carjacking. Wanderer slashed the tires with his wind blades. Robbery. Wanderer made electric shuriken that shocked the robbers into temporary paralysis. Potential car crash. Wanderer swooped in and was able to stop the car in its tracks. Izuku was always behind, he was pushing One for All to the limits he had right now. As Izuku came up to the edge of another building, ready to jump, his body gave up and he lost concentration, One for All fading. Ah! Izuku screamed as he fell before he felt someone catch him by the hood. "Let's take a break," Wanderer commented as he held Izuku's hood and he flew them back up. Wanderer dropped Izuku on top of the building and landed behind him. Izuku watched as Wanderer stood right at the edge of the building, scanning the city. This is the kind of hero he wanted to be, to patrol like Wanderer did, saving people, stopping crimes, but he wasn't there yet. "Don't feel discouraged," Wanderer spoke up. "You've just started, you'll get used to this over time." "I know, but I need to push myself." Izuku sat on the floor, catching his breath. "I got my quirk half a year ago, my friends are already learning to run while I'm trying to crawl." Wanderer turned to Izuku who reminded him of Niwa. "You're already learning so much." Fujin spoke up. "You haven't been crawling, you've been running." Izuku looked at the puppet. "Everyone started at 4 to control their quirks, and they're ahead of you, so far that you can barely see them." Izuku listened to Wanderer's words. "But when you got your quirk, you started to run. You're behind, of course you are, but are you gonna stop because of that?" Fujin looked at Izuku, whose face hardened and he got up. "No." Wanderer smirked and tipped his hat. "Good, I'm not training a quitter." Izuku smiled in return. "No you're not." After a moment of rest, Wanderer flew with Deku following after RHE Wind Hero. "So why are we here?" Himiko asked Fujin as they were walking down a narrow alley in the middle of the night. Fujin asked Aizawa beforehand to allow Himiko out after curfew. "You're going to be an underground hero, is that correct?" Fujin, instead of answering, asked a question of his own. Yeah," Himiko nodded. "Spotlight hero doesn't really fit me, with my quirk and all. We'll be meeting someone from my underground network," Fujin told her. Himiko blinked. "Is that why you had me put on my costume?" she asked. "Yes," was the puppet's response. They stopped and Wanderer crossed his arms. "Why bring me here?" Himiko whispered as it was very quiet. "Because if you're gonna be an underground hero, having this network will help you in the long run. Once you go pro and have enough experience, you'll be the one running the network." Fujin explained and Himiko's eyes widened. She was lucky she had her mask on because she was smiling so widely. "Thanks uncle," she whispered. "Bringing little ones now are we?" A flamboyant voice cut through the silence. "She's my protege," Wanderer responded. "Been keeping yourself out of trouble, Compress." The man dressed like a showman with a mask and top hat gave a short bow. "Mostly, it's hard to not get caught." "So you finished the list I gave you?" Wanderer crossed his arms. "Yes, quite the list. Corrupted individuals are easy but companies are a challenge, a welcome one but a challenge nonetheless." Compress nodded. "What's he talking about?" Carmen asked. "Tell me Carmen, what do you do when you can't touch someone within the law?" Wanderer asked. Carmine's eyes go wide. "You mean you have someone who's outside the law to reach them?" "Correct young lady," Compress confirmed. Wanderer's cases do involve companies or individuals doing shady business, but they're smart and hide behind the law. So I have Compress and his little band of misfits to work outside the law to help gather evidence or sabotage. Wanderer explained. In return, I pay them in cash. So Compress, anything new? Things have been quiet lately, except for a faction that we thought were extinct. Compress told the puppet and produced a picture from thin air and showed them. Wanderer took the picture and his eyes narrowed. Yakuza, you're right, they're supposed to be extinct, what do you know? Quote. Word is that they're selling Trigger and a new drug, one that erases quirks. Carmen gasped quietly. Wanderer's eyes narrowed even more. Permanent or temporary? Temporary, but I think they're working on making it permanent. Compress leaned on his cane. Anything else? Wanderer asked. Yes. Compress showed another picture. It was of a man with a plague mask and a little girl. These two were seen outside a few days ago. They even ran into Heroes. Sources say that he's the girl's father, but I find that hard to believe. It was easy to see why. The girl was dressed in rags and her arms and legs covered in bandages. Carmen clenched her fist in anger at the sight. She's the source. Wanderer muttered as the pieces came together. I beg your pardon. Compress asked. She's the source of the quirk-erasing drug, and by the looks of it, it's her quirk. Wanderer's eyes turned cold, fury building up inside him. I see. Well, they were last seen in Osaka. Compress adjusted his tie. I cannot condone such a horrendous crime. I have standards. I will pass by and do a search. Once I have a location, I will gather some heroes to prepare to storm whatever hole they're hiding in and get that girl out of there. Wanderer put the pictures away and handed Compress an envelope. A pleasure as always. Compress tipped his hat and vanished into the shadows. Carmen let out a growl. I want in. I know, but you have to wait. Come along. Wanderer and Carmen walked out of the alley, rage radiating from the two. 2 days later, Wanderer and Deku were walking down the streets of Osaka. Sir, why did we come all the way out here? Deku asked Wanderer. I go everywhere, Deku. Wanderer responded. I know, but why here specifically? Deku frowned. Reasons. Wanderer responded. A day before, Wanderer found out that Night Eye was the one with the Yakuza case. They were called the Shihasaikai. But Night Eye refused to give any information, so now he was here doing his own investigations. Alright. Deku rubbed his neck. Why do you have a mask if you're not gonna wear it? Wanderer asked Deku. Deku couldn't really come up with an answer to that. Deku stopped when he felt something small hit his leg. He looked down and saw a little girl with white hair. Wanderer's eyes went wide with recognition. Eri, this again. A male voice called out. Wanderer turned to see the man known as Kai Chisaki walking out. Deku knelt down and helped the girl up. Hey, it's okay. Deku smiled, but it faded when he felt her cling to him. Sorry about my daughter, she's skittish. Eri, come on, don't bother the heroes. Kai's words held a warning in them. Sir. Wanderer stepped between Deku and Kai. I think we should take her to the hospital. No, she's fine. Kai tried to reason, but Wanderer's eyes were cold. That wasn't a request. Come with us to the hospital. Wanderer cut in. Please, don't leave me. Eri whimpered. Deku's eye shot up to Kai. Kai narrowed his eyes and Wanderer glared. Kai knew this wasn't ideal, especially with the future #1 hero in front of him. Sir, why is she shaking like this? Deku asked, his voice stern. Kai growled and then took his gloves off. Eri flinched and was about to speak, but Wanderer blew Kai back with a wind blast, sending him against the wall. I don't recommend that, Wanderer said coldly, walking up to Kai, his eyes full of rage. Kai glared and then placed his hand on the wall, making it break apart and sending it at Wanderer, whose body sparked with electro, destroying every piece that was thrown at him. Kai ran, knowing he was outmatched. I'll get you back, Eri, Kai growled under his breath. Wanderer turned to Deku, who was still holding Eri. Is she okay? The puppet asked. Deku looked at Eri, then at Wanderer and nodded. Good, let's get her checked out, then I need to have a chat with Sir Night Eye. Wanderer's eyes flashed blue. Chapter 25. Wanderer burst into the Night-Eye agency with a look of pure rage etched in his features. He had just come out of the hospital and what he had seen was worse than he even realized. A little girl was full of scars and mentally scarred for life. And she told them that she met heroes before, a man with a red cape and a man in a suit with glasses. Night-Eye had a lot to answer for. Where is that sorry excuse for a hero? Wanderer shouted as he saw Centipeter walking by. Wanderer. What? Take me to Night-Eye, now. Wanderer demanded, electricity sparkling around him. The sidekick shivered and nodded, taking Wanderer to Night-Eye's office. Once they made it to the door, Wanderer slammed it open to see Night-Eye with his sidekick Bubblegirl hooked up to a torture machine with feathers tickling her sides making her laugh uncontrollably. Night-Eye turned and glared at Wanderer. What are you doing here? He demanded. Get her out of that contraption, we need to talk. Wanderer ordered as he stepped into the room with a glare of his own. I doubt we have anything to talk about. Yakuza. Night-Eye's eyes narrowed, he pulled a switch and Bubblegirl was released. Leave us. The sidekick got up shakily and looked at Wanderer, then at Night-Eye before going to the door and closing the door behind her. Let's start with the obvious fact that you haven't resolved the case itself. Wanderer started off. I am working on gathering enough evidence to put them behind bars, I'm looking through every angle. Night-Eye argued. Are you serious? Wanderer exclaimed. You spent months investigating them. Wanderer growled. And worse of all, you let a little girl leave with a villain. I don't know how you know about her, but we will save her when we get enough evidence. Night-Eye responded coldly. Too late, she's in the hospital, away from that man. Wanderer glared. Night-Eye glared right back. You did what? He asked in a low tone. Do you have any idea what you've done? Now the Yakuza know we're onto them, we lost the element of surprise. Wanderer blinked. Are you listening to yourself? Exclamation mark. They already know about you investigating them. A moron would be blind to see it. All you've done is act recklessly and now the Shihasaikai will go into hiding. Night-Eye argued. Wanderer reaches into his jacket and pulls out pictures. Look at this. He growled. When Night-Eye refused to look, Wanderer slammed Night-Eye against the wall. Look at this. This is what they were doing to a 6-year-old girl and you were gonna let her stay there because of your overly cautious attitude. Wanderer shouted in rage, ignoring the sound of the door slamming open. Night-Eye looked at the pictures of Aries' scars, they weren't just on her arms and legs, but all over her body. She's traumatized. Lightning sparked from his body. She even apologized for being a burden. Wanderer hissed. All because you wanted to wait, heroes don't have that luxury. Wanderer pulled back and tossed the pictures to the floor, he heard a gasp of horror from behind. Look at those pictures, I bet she'll even apologize to you for making you look at her ugly scars, she apologized to me. Wanderer held nothing back. The Wind Hero turned to see Mirio Tagata, Bubblegirl and Centipeter looking at the pictures on the floor, looking horrified. I apologize for the scene, I just wanted to make a point. Wanderer walks past them before stopping at the door. I'll be hosting a meeting in 2 days' time, it'll be with other heroes to plan on what to do with the Shihasaikai, come if you wish, if you have information. With that, Wanderer left. Mirio picked up a picture, his hands shaking as he saw the pictures of the girl he let go back to that man. Sir. He looked at Night-Eye whose face was stoic as he adjusted his tie and took the photos from Mirio's hands. Bubblegirl looked at a picture and felt sick, but she couldn't look away, only when Night-Eye snatched the picture away did she look at the hero. Go back to work. Night Eye ordered and went back to his desk. Quote. Yes sir, Bubble Girl turned and walked away. Centipeter saw her conflicted expression and then turned to Nigthai before following after. Mirio stared at his mentor. He couldn't even save a little girl. How was he supposed to save 1,000,000 people? Will we be going to the meeting? I would like to be alone. Night Eye answered, avoiding the question. Mirio paused but nodded and left, guilt eating him away. Izuku was sitting with Eri in the hospital room. The doctors got the blood samples and did the tests to make sure she was healthy. Eri was afraid of doctors and needles. He had to reassure her that they were good doctors and they wouldn't hurt her. It took some time but she let them draw blood. It broke his heart to see her so scared. Wanderer had left to talk to Sir Night Eye, and with the face he had, Izuku knew it wasn't gonna be good. Quote. Deku. Eri looked at the boy as she sat up from her bed. Where's Hat Guy? Izuku blinked. Oh his name is Wanderer, don't call him Hat Guy, he hates that. Izuku informed her. Oh, okay, where is he? Eri asked again. He went to take care of some business, don't worry, you're safe now. Izuku gave her a reassuring smile. Eri blinked before she pinched her cheeks and stretched them out, confusing Izuku. After a while, Eri stopped and teared up. Quote. Sorry, how do you smile? Izuku swore to every god that the villain who did this wouldn't live to see another day for traumatizing this little girl. Smiling was a natural thing, but for Eri to not know how to. That was horrifying. The door opened and Wanderer walked in. Deku, how is she? He asked as he closed the door behind him. She's fine sir, she was just asking where you were. Izuku informed Wanderer. Wander. Eri tried to say his name but she was having a bit of trouble. Wanderer's gaze softened as he reached out and petted her head. Just call me Fujin, he whispered. Izuku's eyes went wide. That was his name. Fujin. Eri repeated and nodded. Thank you for saving me, I hope I'm not a bother. Fujin sighed and shook his head. Don't apologize, you didn't deserve what happened to you. Eri teared up. He'll come for me. Fujin's eyes darkened. He won't, I promise, you will be safe, we need to go now. He pulled his hand away. Rest, the doctors here will take care of you. He assured her and looked to Izuku. We'll be back as soon as we can. Izuku smiled and Eri looked sad but nodded. The two left and Izuku clenched his fist. She can't smile, she doesn't know how to. Fujin looked at Izuku. You're angry, good, save that anger, we'll be holding a meeting in 2 days to talk about our next move against the Yakuza, take the day off with your classmates tomorrow. Izuku looked at Fujin and nodded. Yes sir. Izuku said, he paused and then spoke once more. Sir, is your name really, Fujin? The hero stopped and looked at Izuku. It is, I don't give it out freely, so don't tell anyone. Izuku nodded and bit his lip. Sir, I wanted to ask, how are you, the same? The hero raised an eyebrow. You look the same since the day we met. Izuku clarified. Fujin sighed. Ah, yes, I remember that day, I gave you my first ever autograph. Izuku's eyes widened. That autograph was framed in his room at home, it was his second most prized possession. You remember that? He whispered. I do, as for your question, I might tell you later on, I kept your secret, All Might knows this and you could be trustworthy enough to know, but now is not a good time. Wanderer explained. I understand sir. Izuku nodded. Let's go. Wanderer and Deku left the hospital. A team-up request, from Wanderer of all people. Yukio hummed as she checked her phone after she watched her interns take down 2 large villains. Wanderer. Deku, Carmen and Kriti are interning there. Suyu commented. Oh wow, if Wanderer is requesting, it must be big. Nejire gasped. Does he really not do team-ups? Ochako asked with a small frown. He doesn't do team-ups like this, but it must be important if he's asking to meet up now. Yukio sent a text in response. You did good, Red. Fat Gum praised Kirishima as they entered the office. Thank you, sir. Kirishima grinned widely. You did good, better than me. Tamaki muttered and had his hood over his head. Ah, chin up, Sunniator. Once the drug is out of your system, I bet your quirk will come back. Fat Gum assured Tamaki. I hope you're right. Fat Gum held up the bullet that bounced off of Kirishima. I gotta send this to forensics to have them analyze it. His phone pinged, cutting him off. The large hero took his phone out and grinned. Oh ho. Wanderer is requesting a team-up. First time for everything, must be important, who am I to say no to a friend in need? Fat Gum grinned and sent a response, not knowing that the incident they just finished was related to Wanderer's team-up request. Certain heroes received Wanderer's request for a team-up and invitation to a meeting. All of them accepted the invitation. Izuku was in the train with Himiko, Momo, Ochako, Suyu and Kirishima. It's weird that we're all going together. Ochako commented. This train will take us to the area where Wanderer's agency is. Momo informed Ochako. Yukio did say that Wanderer requested a team-up, that could be why we're all going to his agency. Suyu added. Huh, same with Fat Gum. Kirishima scratched his cheek. As they got off the train and walked to the agency, they saw the big 3 standing by the doors of Wanderer's agency. Hey! Mirio smiled and waved as Nejire waved herself. Tagata. Izuku narrowed his eyes. So that means Night Eye is here too? He asked with a bit of an edge. Mirio flinched and laughed nervously. Yeah, listen, I'm sorry about, you know. Don't apologize to me, Izuku said sharply and walked into the agency, leaving his friends confused. Apologize to her, the last part was whispered. Is everything okay? Nejire asked, confused as to why Midoriya was so hostile. It's my fault, don't worry, he has a valid reason. The rest of the students went into the office. Chi-Chi looked up to see the students. 10th floor, meeting room 5. She said. Thank you, Chi-Chi. Himiko smiled and they went into the elevator. They made it to the 10th floor and they made it into meeting room 5 and they were met with a room full of heroes. Izuku looked around, there were so many heroes, he even saw Mr. Aizawa. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku turned and his face turned to a scowl as he was met with Sir Night Eye. I have nothing to say to you. Izuku said coldly, surprising his classmates. I see you gained Wanderer's sharp tongue. Night Eye glared. I also gained some of his reaction time and judgment, something you should learn. Izuku spat. Midoriya. Momo hissed. Night Eye glared harder and walked away. What was that about? Himiko asked. Yeah, you're not yourself, Deku, Ochako frowned. You'll see when the meeting starts. Izuku gave them a small smile. The doors slammed open, Wanderer, Faruzan, Layla and Burnin walked in. Welcome to my agency, Wanderer announced. I'm sure you're wondering why you're here. He ignored the snickering from some of the people in attendance. Take a seat and we'll get started. There were 2 large tables, everyone took their seats, students took seats next to the heroes they were working with. Night Eye sat near the front with Bubblegirl and Mirio. Here. Night Eye tossed a USB at Wanderer who caught it and handed it to Layla. The information we gathered since we took the case. Night Eye explained. Layla, compare the information to ours. Wanderer ordered, and the sleep-deprived girl nodded before sitting down in front of a computer connected to a large screen mounted on the wall and started going through the information. Wanderer turned to the heroes. Thank you for coming, you're here because I requested aid in a case that I'm thoroughly taking over. Wanderer's eyes flickered to Night Eye before he addressed the crowd once more. As you know, the Yakuza have been extinct ever since Heroes emerged, but there's a group that has been hiding and building their network. Known as the Shihasaikai. Wanderer crossed his arms. Layla typed on the computer, turned on the screen and pulled up pictures of the people in the Yakuza, including Kai Chisaki. The group has been in hiding for a long time, but 2 years ago, they've been moving in secret, dealing in trigger and a new drug. Faruzan stepped up and Wanderer stepped aside. Faruzan shuddered. This drug, erases quirks. This got most of the heroes in the room talking. Kirishima looked at Tamaki. Wait, that's what you were hit with? The redhead exclaimed. Yeah, but I got my quirk back a few hours after. Tamaki raised his hand that changed into a cow hoof, showing that his quirk had returned. Fat Gum and his agency encountered this drug, thankfully the effects aren't permanent. Faruzan continued. And thankfully, we have obtained the source of the drug. Wait, you already have it? Rocklock asked, confused. How? Faruzan sighed. The source is a 6-year-old girl named Eri. She spoke in a soft tone. Layla pulled up Eri's picture, as well as some of the scars she had. The room went dead silent as everyone looked. The Shihasaikai extracted samples from her to make these bullets, and from her testimony. Faruzan looked disgusted by what she was about to say next. Kai Chisaki dismantled her and put her back together with his quirk, over and over again. Mirio looked down in shame as Night Eye stared at the screen blankly. First contact was made when Night Eye and Lemillion bumped into her as she was trying to get away from Chisaki. Wanderer spoke up in a cold tone. Unfortunately, Night Eye let her go back to him to make Chisaki believe that he wasn't under investigation. Wanderer's words got a reaction as almost everyone looked at Night Eye in disgust. You let a little girl go back to her abuser. Mr. Brave questioned angrily. I understand that my actions were wrong, but I did not want to arouse suspicion. Night Eye answered. Yukio growled. I think it was obvious that they were under investigation. Thankfully, Wanderer and Deku encountered her once more. During a patrol, Wanderer took action and took Eri under his protection. Faruzan spoke up. That eased the tension as quickly as it came. Good, where is she? Rocklock asked. In a safe place. Wanderer answered cryptically. Wanderer took Eri out of the hospital and into a safe place that even I don't know about. Faruzan gave Wanderer a small glare. If the Shihasaikai are still out there, they'll use their connections to find Eri and take her back. I'm not gonna allow that. Wanderer glared back. That's logical, Aizawa spoke up. How were you able to convince the staff to let her leave? I have my ways. Wanderer stepped forward. I called you all here today to plan for an attack at the main base of the Shihasaikai. They know we're onto them, so they'll retreat to their main base of operations. I already have people searching for the location. I'm asking you all to aid in this task. Wanderer narrowed his eyes. Once we have the location, I'll acquire the warrant and we'll storm their base. No Yakuza leaves. Do I have your cooperation in this operation? There were sounds of confirmation, Fatgum grinning and nodding, Yukio smiling and nodding. Wanderer noticed some of the students talking amongst themselves, but he pushed it aside. Good, now let's go over the information on the targets. He turned to Faruzan and nodded. Thank you, Wanderer. I expect you all to take notes, this is important. Faruzan put her hands on her hips and started to explain. Izuku and the rest of his classmates were going over the notes that Faruzan provided. Man, can't believe we're doing this. Kirishima commented. It's for Eri's sake. Himiko had a scowl as she looked at the notes she took. Yeah, these people shouldn't be on the streets. Suyu croaked in anger, imagining her sister in Eri's place. How could someone do this to a little girl? Ochako asked sadly. Momo frowned, thinking the same thing. The world is an ugly place. Himiko responded. But it's our job to help people see the bright side and work past the horrible shit. That's a good way to look at things. Nijire came over with Mirio and Tamaki. But not with the same language. She added. Yeah, you just came up with that. Mirio asked. Nah, Uncle Juan, he told me that a few months after I was taken away from my donors. Himiko said. Oh yeah. You're Himiko Toga. Nijire snapped her fingers. Himiko's gaze turned ice cold, the look made Nijire freeze up. Don't call me Toga, she growled. She hated that name, she didn't want to be associated with that name. Nijire, sore subject. Tamaki pulled on Nijire's sleeve. Right, sorry. Nijire frowned and bowed in apology. Himiko sighed. It's fine, don't do it again. Wow, your glare reminds me of Wanderers. Mirio commented. Izuku blinked, so that's why it looked so familiar. He gave you glaring lessons or something? Kirishima asked. Problem children. The first years looked up to see Aizawa walking over. Mr. Aizawa. Suyu greeted him. Call me Eraserhead when we're not in school. Listen, I don't think you six should be part of this. He said and stopped them when they tried to protest. But, I will consider this a chance for you to regain my trust. I'm trusting you to keep a level head and follow orders when needed, understood? The first years looked at each other, the ones who were in the most trouble understood. Yes sir, we understand. Izuku nodded. Good, I'll look after you as best I can, even if you're under the other heroes' supervision, you're all still my students. Aizawa informed them. We'll be careful. Kirishima promised with a grin. We won't let you down sir. Momo nodded. Don't worry Eraser, I'm the most behaved out of this group. Himiko smirked. Ribbit, no you're not. Hey. Himiko pouted, making the others laugh. A day after the meeting, A came to visit. Very impressive office. A commented as she looked out the window, with what he assumed was his new blade in hand, wrapped in a blue cloth. Thank you. Fujin answered as he was behind his desk on the computer. He finished typing and turned to face her. Is that it? He asked. It is, I called in a favor from Barbados to have some Anemo energy imbued into it. A walked over and handed Fujin the blade. Unwrapping it carefully, he saw that the scabbard was white and blue like his color scheme as well as the hilt. On the pommel was a bright green Anemo symbol on each side, the handle was actually designed like the electro symbol. He looked at A who looked excited, if her smile was of any indication. Fujin drew the blade and it hummed with power. He could feel the Anemo flowing out of it and the electro crackling. The blade itself was silver with a light blue edge. ... Does it have a name? Fujin asked A. The Raiden Shogun shook her head. I believe the wielder should name the blade. Fujin looked at the blade and twirled it in his hand. Storm Slicer. Storm Slicer. A raised an eyebrow. Seems fitting enough. Fujin sheathed the blade. You came just in time too. A hummed. Since you're about to raid it, Yakuza stronghold. A was unfamiliar with the name Yakuza. Yes. Fujin answered. Yakuza are organized criminals that keep their activities secret to keep the authorities from catching them. The puppet explained. But that was a very long time ago, now the Yakuza are almost extinct, I'm gonna make sure that it sticks. A nodded. It made her think of how he would be if he was a general in her army, he'd probably make a fine general in her right hand. What is it that caused them to gain your interest? A asked. They tortured an innocent 6-year-old to use her power as a weapon. A's eyes go dull. Who would do such a thing? ... You will hunt them down. She wasn't asking a question. Like the animals they are. Fujin answered coldly. 2 days later, outside the Shihasaikai stronghold, police and heroes were gathered and preparing to break in. The forecast said it would be a clear day with no clouds in the sky, but in reality, clouds seemed to converge over the stronghold and thunder rumbled. Forecast said there wouldn't be any clouds. A random officer muttered. I hope it doesn't rain over our heads. Another officer grumbled, but rain started to fall. You had to jinx it. Kesagiri man sighed. Deku was adjusting his gloves, not letting the rain bother him, he looked determined. Man, everyone is so tense. Carmen walked up to him. With our mission, it's a given. Kriti added as she adjusted her cloak. Yukio looked up at the sky and noticed something odd. Thunder isn't normally purple, is it? She asked the closest person. Nah. Fat Gum answered and he looked back. I think I know what's causing this storm. All who heard turned and saw Wanderer walking towards the compound, his hat tipped down, covering his face, a sword strapped to his back, electricity dancing along his fingers and wind swirling around him. Everyone stepped out of his way as he walked to the front door of the Shihasaikai compound. All Might could change the weather with just one punch, but Wanderer can cause a thunderstorm with his presence alone. Deku thought as he watched the wind hero step in front of the compound. The Yakuza will no longer exist after today, they'll stay extinct as they should. Wanderer looked up, his eyes glowing blue with a Nemo energy. Chapter 26. Wanderer took a step forward and suddenly the door burst open with a large, hulking man wearing a mask with a bird beak, breaking through. What's with all this police in the morning? The man bellowed. Police officers were thrown back, but the heroes acted quickly and saved the officers closest to them. Rikia Katsukame. Wanderer didn't flinch, he sidestepped out of the way. Yukio, you and your interns take care of this one. Wanderer ordered and rushed past Rikia. You heard him. Yukio shifted into her dragon form and started to battle Rikia with Froppy, Uravity and Nijire-chan. Come on. Carmen rushed to follow her uncle, the other heroes and police followed after. Arrest them all. Let none escape. Wanderer ordered and rushed forward. This is the heroes and police. We have a warrant. An officer shouted as he held up a paper. Damn it. A group of Yakuza rushed forward, swords in hand and raised, ready to strike Wanderer down. But in a flash, the swords were broken and Wanderer sent a powerful gust of wind to blow the Yakuza away. Deku gasped as he saw the sword, it glowed teal and crackled with electricity. What was with that sword? Is that your mom's gift, Uncle Juan? Carmen asked as she looked at the sword as Wanderer sheathed it. Yes, now let's move. Burnin, take some of the other heroes and search the rest of the house. There's an underground maze below, so that's where Chisaki will be. I'll follow with the others. Wanderer ordered Burnin, who saluted with a smirk. Got it, boss. Burnin turned to some of the cops and heroes. Follow me, Kriti, you too. She turned to the student who nodded. Good luck, Kriti told the others as she left with the group. Wanderer rushed forward with his group and they stopped in front of a shrine. What now? Red Riot asked, but Wanderer swung his blade quicker than the eye could follow. When the puppet sheathed the blade, the shrine and the wall behind it fell apart, revealing a passageway. Good, the information was valid. Wanderer commented as he entered the passage. On the floor were Yakuza, twitching as electricity filled their bodies. He's taking them down so easily. Lemillion muttered. More incoming. Bubble Girl shouted as she saw some more goons coming up behind them. Dispose of them. Wanderer ordered before Night Eye could say anything. Bubble Girl lunged forward and used her bubble quirk to blind the goons and take them down. I got this. Keep going. Bubble Girl told them as she pinned the Yakuza to the ground. Wanderer was impressed. He didn't know bubbles could be used that way. He rushed through the passageway. As they ran down the passageway, they stumbled onto a dead end. That can't be right. Red Riot looked around for an opening. Hang on. Let me look. Lemillion phased through the wall in front of them. He popped back out. There's more behind this wall. It's pretty thick though. Deku, Red Riot. Wanderer called out. Deku got the message and rushed forward with Red Riot in tow. Their combined strength brought the wall down immediately. Let's move. Wanderer ran forward with the others following. Suddenly the whole passage itself started to move. Rocklock stumbled. The walls are moving. This is Joy Irinaka's quirk. Night Eye deduced as Sunniator looked around. But isn't it supposed to be limited? A random hero asked. Trigger. Wanderer narrowed his eyes and started to hover. Find your footing and keep moving. Wanderer blasted forward. But the puppet paused when the floor below them opened up. He watched as the others fell down to a different hallway. Wanderer rushed in after them. Everyone all right? Wanderer asked as he hovered over them. Well, look what we have here. The group looked up to see three men standing before them. Eraserhead already had his quirk active and aimed at the three, feeling like they weren't ordinary thugs. Great, more of them. Fatgum got up and slammed his fist into his palm. Let's show these chumps how real pros, but Sunniator raised his hand up. Let me deal with them. Sunniator said loud enough for everyone to hear. Wanderer looked at the three Yakuza. Very well, let's go. Wanderer spotted a door and blasted through it and the other heroes followed. Wanderer narrowed his eyes as the hallway continued to warp and move. Damn it. Can't stay on my feet like this. Rocklock cursed. Can't you erase his quirk? I need to see the main body to do that. Eraserhead responded as did his best to keep his footing. The walls started to move towards them in an attempt to kill them. Smash. Deku rushed forward with Red Riot. Red Gauntlet. The duo broke the wall and continued forward while stumbling. Suddenly, a hole appeared on a wall next to Eraserhead and just as another wall moved to push him on, Fatgum and Kirishima jumped in and were pushed into the hole instead. Be careful, Fat. Eraser called as the hole closed. Wanderer growled. Don't have time for this. The puppet put a hand on the hilt of his sword. This is your only warning, show yourself. When there was no response, Wanderer narrowed his eyes. So be it. Everyone down. The heroes hit the floor before Wanderer drew his blade and performed a spinning slash, electricity dancing around his blade, destroying the concrete and revealing Mimic in the process. Now Eraser. Wanderer barked. Eraserhead looked at Mimic as the man fell to the floor, a large gash on his shoulder and twitching from the electricity in his body. Holy shit, you got him! Carmen exclaimed in shock. Deku turned away from the bleeding man, not used to seeing the blood. Night Eye came forward and checked on Mimic. We need to stop the bleeding, he told the group. Wanderer landed next to Night Eye. Allow me. The puppet put his hand on the Yakuza's shoulder and the man screamed in pain as Wanderer cauterized the wound. Deku flinched at the man's screams. Eraser notices and he sighs. This is bound to happen, Deku. I know, I have to keep moving. Deku clenched his fists. Wanderer. Carmen called out. Lemillion went ahead of us. She points down a hallway. We have to follow. Night Eye spoke up as he cuffed the villain. Wanderer mumbled something and hovered in the air. I'll catch up to him, I suggest you hurry up. With that, Wanderer flew down the hallway. Always on the move. Rocklock grumbled as the group entered the same hallway. Wanderer flew through the hallway until he found Mirio facing off against two Yakuzas. Lemillion, what's with these two? Wanderer demanded as he stopped and hovered. Careful. One can make you feel drunk and the other can force you to tell the truth. Lemillion called out as he held onto the wall. Ah, the wind hero who took Eri, tell me, where is she? The man dressed in black asked. Wanderer narrowed his eyes but didn't answer. A perk of being a puppet, he technically doesn't have a brain so mental quirks won't work on him. I asked you. Where is Eri? The man asked again. What are ya stupid? The other man asked drunkenly. ... Why would I tell you imbeciles? Wanderer smirked and rushed forward, taking out the Yakuza in white who was hanging from the ceiling and then knocking out the man in black. Wow, how did you resist their quirks? Lemillion asked in awe. No time, did you see Overhaul? Wanderer demanded. Lemillion nodded. He's up ahead with another subordinate. Lemillion got off the wall. Watch over these two, I'm going after them. Wanderer flew forwards, not waiting for Lemillion to answer. Wanderer heard his earpiece go off and his eyes widened at the information relayed to him before his eyes narrowed. The puppet stopped flying when he saw his prey. ... Wanderer. Kai Chisaki said in a dark tone as he and his subordinate turned to face Wanderer. Kai Chisaki, or do you prefer Overhaul? Wanderer slowly landed and glared at the man. You disgust me, Overhaul snarled. Quirks are nothing but a disease that I will cure. I just need Eri, now tell me where she is. Overhaul demanded. Wanderer scoffed. You're delusional, 80% of the world has quirks, even you're nothing but a hypocrite. Shut your mouth. The white-cloaked subordinate shouted. ... I'll get the answer out of you, one way, or another. Overhaul took his gloves off. Wanderer drew his sword. You're welcome to try. Wanderer taunted. Sir. Lemillion called out as the group finally made it. Lemillion, where is Wanderer? Night Eye demanded as Eraserhead and Rocklock put cuffs on the two Yakuza. He went ahead to confront Overhaul. Lemillion informed him. Night Eye cursed. We must hurry, he might kill him if we don't make it. Uncle Juan won't kill him. Carmen spoke up. How can you be so sure? Night Eye glared at her. His intentions are clear. He intends to end Kai Chisaki. Night Eye, that's enough. Eraserhead scowled. He wouldn't. Deku responded. Stop pushing your own problems into this case, leave it at the door. He remembers Wanderer's words. He wouldn't kill him, besides. Carmine's eyes gained a glint. Death is too merciful for Overhaul. Corino was slammed into the wall and he slid down. Overhaul had touched the ground and started to try and impale Wanderer, but his skills with a blade were too refined and every attempt at Wanderer's life was met with quick slashes and electricity in the air. He closed off the area so no other heroes would interrupt them. Trying to bring the Yakuza back is a pointless endeavor. Wanderer taunted as he sheathed his blade. You could have done so much good with your power, and here you are using it to torture one girl, how pathetic. Wanderer scowled. Overhaul reminded him so much of Dottore, he hated it. You wouldn't understand, I'm saving humanity. Overhaul screamed as he slammed his hands on the floor and more spikes formed. Wanderer raised his blade, ready to strike, but then, he suddenly heard a gunshot. Reaching behind his neck, he pulled a syringe bullet. Not the final product, but enough for you to lose your quirk for a few hours. Corino smirked. End of the line, hero. Overhauled reached to touch the wall, but the two Yakuza's eyes went wide when wind started to swirl around him. That bullet was wasted. Wanderer burst in front of Corino and then sliced his arrow-shaped hair off so that he wouldn't be able to use his quirk, and slammed his fist into Corino's stomach, knocking him out cold. What are you? Overhaul demanded. He was able to resist the quirk-erasing bullet. To the people. I am the Wind Hero, the Wanderer. Wanderer answered and turned to face Overhaul. But to you, Kai Chisaki. Overhaul felt an invisible force bring him to his knees. To you, I am your worst nightmare. Overhaul slammed his hands on the ground, using the environment to attack Wanderer, but everything he sent was repelled by Wanderer's blade. No, no. Stay away from me. Overhaul screamed as he stumbled back. Wanderer was walking towards him slowly, his eyes glowing teal ominously. You say that quirks are a disease, then that means you hate the one you have. Wanderer slammed his foot onto Kai's chest, breaking 3 ribs, making the man scream in pain. You squander your gift, using it to harm a 6-year-old girl, and for what? Wanderer asked as he pushed the man down with his foot, taking the bird mask and crushing it in his hand. Overhaul glared at the hero. To bring the Yakuza back to its glory, for Pops. Kai tried to use his quirk, but electricity coursed through him, making him scream again. Wanderer's eyes narrowed. The old man upstairs, he took you in, didn't he? I bet he didn't approve of your methods, and this is how you repay him. Wanderer took something out of his pocket. You're undeserving of this power. Wanderer raised the injector. What are you doing? Overhaul stares at the injector. Curing you. Wanderer stabbed the injector into Kai's neck. What? Kai's eyes went wide. No. How? Kai screamed as he no longer felt his quirk. You needed so much blood, all I needed was 20 milliliters. Wanderer recalled the night before the raid. This is all of it. Wanderer asked Compress as he looked at the small box full of quirk-erasing bullets. Every single one that I could find, and steal. Compress shrugged. A lot was sold by the Shihasaikai. Thank you for your service. Wanderer handed Compress an envelope and left the alley. In his agency, Wanderer worked in his lab and was able to create a permanent quirk-erasing solution. All that time spent as Dottore's test subject wasn't a complete waste. Wanderer mumbled as he made 2 syringes and put one in a safe. No. Give it back. I need it. Kai flailed. I need it to cure boss. Too late. You don't deserve the power you were given. You will live with your regrets. Wanderer got off Kai, who started to scream in despair as the weight of Wanderer's words sunk in. Smash. Izuku came crashing through the wall with the other heroes, but what they were met with was an unconscious Corino, a screaming Kai Chisaki, and the Wanderer staring at the screaming man with disinterest. Arrest them. Wanderer ordered. We're done here. What did you do? Night Eye demanded. Finished it. Wanderer glared. I used their own product against them. Now Kai Chisaki has no quirk to speak of. Carmen looked at the wailing man. I told you, death is too merciful. She spoke aloud. Wanderer walked away, feeling somewhat lighter. It wasn't Dottore who he bested, but Kai reminded him so much of the doctor, it was close enough. The raid ended there, all of the villains were apprehended and the Yakuza were no more. The Yukio agency handled Rikia without any issues aside from him using Trigger, but Uravati, Froppy and Nijire-chan were able to take him down. Red Riot and Fatgum took down Kendo Rappa as well as Hekiji Tengai. Red Riot needed to go to the hospital though. Lastly, Vernon found the original leader of the Shihasai Kai, in a coma from Kai's quirk. Now that the quirk was lost, there was no real way to wake him up. The whole raid took an hour to complete. A success in Wanderer's eyes. So you found no quirk erasing bullets? Night Eye asked Bubble Girl as they stood outside of the compound. The storm has stopped and the sun was out. No sir, all the samples were smashed or taken. Bubble Girl shook her head. Night Eye cupped his chin. Where could have the remaining bullets gone? Vernon walked up to her car and opened the glove compartment and placed a small box inside before closing it. Boss said we can't trust anyone with these. Vernon muttered as she locked the door. I have to agree. Hours after the raid, Fujin was walking to his apartment with a bag in hand. The raid went well. Faruzan was watching over the students as they filled out the necessary paperwork. Now he just needed to check on something. Fujin entered the apartment. I'm back, he called out as he walked down the hall to the living room. Ah, Fujin. Fuyumi perked up as she was sitting on the floor in front of Eri as the little girl doodled with crayons. Welcome back. We were just drawing. Fuyumi smiled. Fujin looked at Eri as she was drawing a figure in blue with a circle on its head. I told her to draw something that comes to mind. Fuyumi explained. I brought you some food. He held out the plastic bag. Did you bring apples as well? Fuyumi got up from the floor and took the bag. Yes. Fujin nodded and they moved to the kitchen. How is she? Fuyumi's smile dropped as she sighed. She's quiet. It's sad to see such a young girl so reserved. I had to assure her that she wasn't bothering me. She looked at him. Is it over? Quote. Yes, the Yakuza are no more. Fujin nodded. Good, you should tell her. Hearing that from you should help. You did promise her after all. Fuyumi gave a genuine smile. I apologize for asking you to do this, Fujin sighed. Hey, it's fine, you asked for help with a child. I accepted, just be more detailed with your explanation. Fuyumi put her hands on her hips. I'll have to figure out what to do with her. Fujin sighed. I think you should keep her. Fuyumi told him. What? I'm a top hero, I don't have time for that. Fujin frowned. Take her to the agency like you did with Himiko, give her a good environment, it'll help with her mental state. Fuyumi explained. Could I ask you to come back to look after her and teach her what she's missing? Fujin asked. A tutor again. Fuyumi raised an eyebrow and then smiled. Of course, I can come during the afternoons, my usual fee. She teased. Fujin rolled his eyes. Fine. They left the kitchen and saw Eri still drawing. Eri. Fuyumi called out, catching Eri's attention. Fujin stepped forward and knelt in front of her. Those people who hurt you, they're gone. He told her gently. Eri's eyes went wide. They're gone. Quote. Yes, they won't hurt you ever again, I promise you. Fujin gave her a gentle smile. Eri teared up and jumped into his arms, hugging his neck. Fujin was surprised but he held her close as he stood up, Eri clinging to him like a koala. He didn't understand why, he felt warm, he felt peace. He saved thousands of people, maybe even more, but with Himiko and Eri, when he saved those two, he felt like he really accomplished something. Fuyumi smiled as she watched Fujin hug Eri, She noticed the drawing that Eri was doing. It had what looked to be a stick figure of Fujin with his hat, a green stick figure and then a small stick figure between them. That made her smile even more.
Unfortunately, this part is over. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies for all those quotes, exclamation marks, question marks and mispronunciations. Please have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night. See you next time, my dear faves.